On the morning of March 17, 1943, in Berlin, the heavy wooden folder slammed onto Admiral Wilhelm Canaris' mahogany desk with such force that coffee leapt from his porcelain cup, staining intelligence reports whose discovery by the Gestapo would mean certain execution. The documents in his hands were impossible, outrageous, even, and yet meticulously verified. Across the tall windows of Abwehr headquarters, Canaris could see the muted grey canal where Rosa Luxemburg's body had been discarded 24 years earlier, a grim reminder that politics in Germany had always carried a deadly price. Now, as chief of German military intelligence, Canaris held a report that defied every assumption of Nazi ideology. The Americans were producing a B-24 Liberator bomber every single hour at Ford's Willow Run plant. Each bomber was a marvel of engineering, 1.5 million individual parts, 450,000 rivets, 30,000 components assembled into an 18-ton aircraft capable of reshaping the skies of Europe. Germany, by comparison, struggled to produce a single armored vehicle efficiently. Major Friedrich Wilhelm Heinz, standing rigidly at attention, had triple-checked the intelligence. The numbers did not lie. And yet, the implications were almost too vast to comprehend. This single factory, operating in a democratic nation, with a racially diverse workforce including women and black Americans, was outproducing the entire Luftwaffe industrial base. Canaris understood immediately. Germany had miscalculated, catastrophically. The story of this failure stretched back years. In 1941, Luftwaffe General Karl Kohler had reported to Hermann Göring that American aircraft production was nearing 2,000 planes per month. Göring had laughed aloud. Americans, he said, could build refrigerators and razors, but military aircraft? Impossible. Their democracy made them weak, their diverse population inefficient, and their Jewish citizens corrupt. To accept the truth would have been to concede that Germany was not the pinnacle of industrial and racial superiority. And so the warnings were ignored. By early 1943, German intelligence networks across North and South America began reporting the same unthinkable story. Ford's Willow Run plant was producing more heavy bombers than all of Germany's factories combined. Mexican industrialists sympathetic to Germany, Spanish diplomats, Swedish businessmen, and even intercepted letters from American workers in neutral countries all painted the same picture. The plant ran like a precision instrument, an assembly line over a mile long, where every worker performed the same task repeatedly, achieving perfection through repetition. Canaris deputy, Oberstleutenant Nicholas Ritter, who had lived in Manhattan during the Roaring Twenties and watched the construction of the Chrysler Building, understood exactly what he was seeing. If these numbers are correct, he told Canaris, Germany has already lost the war. It is now only a question of mathematics and time. The intelligence came through dangerous, intricate networks. Georg Nicholas Network in Mexico City gathered testimony from American businessmen traveling between Detroit and Mexican oil fields. At a reception in Mexico City on February 3, 1943, Harold Morrison, an American oil executive, described Willow Run in vivid detail, unaware a German agent was listening. The building, he said, was so vast that clouds sometimes formed inside. 42,000 workers, including thousands of women and black Americans, built the most complex machines ever created. Sub-assemblies converged like rivers into a single line. A single woman, trained in days rather than months, could install hydraulic lines in the tail of a bomber. The Americans, Morrison explained, had broken down production into 60,000 separate operations, a feat that left European industrialists speechless. Further intelligence arrived from Spain. Colonel José Ungria, Spanish military attaché in Washington, maintained secret connections with American aircraft manufacturers, reporting back to Germany. In March 1943, he met Charles Sorensen, Ford's production chief, who spoke freely of Willow Run's innovation. Sorensen described the conversion of the San Diego B-24 plant, where planes had been built outdoors in sunshine, one by one over 180,000 man-hours per aircraft, into a streamlined assembly line where planes moved past stationary workers, who performed specific tasks with mechanical precision. Apprentice schools trained 8,000 workers weekly. Women performed 40% of the work, black workers operated sophisticated machinery, and even teenagers managed supply logistics. Independent verification poured in from Swedish engineer Erik Lundberg and Japanese commander Toshikazu Omi, whose coded messages confirmed Willow Run's astonishing efficiency. By April 1943, German intelligence had compiled data from 17 independent sources, confirming 650 B-24s monthly from Willow Run alone, and a total of 1,400 B-24s produced across America each month. Canaris authorized Operation Pastorius, sending saboteurs into the United States to investigate, but the truth was already so overwhelming that one agent, George John Dash, surrendered to the FBI rather than completing his mission. "They don't believe your production figures," Dash told American interrogators. "I lived here. I've seen your factories. If Ford could produce a car every minute before the war, they could certainly produce a bomber every hour during it." They accused me of defeatism. Despite mounting evidence, the Nazi leadership refused to accept reality. On April 20, 1943, Canaris personally presented intelligence to Göring at Karen Hall. Photographs of the assembly line, intercepted documents, and reports from dozens of sources were spread across Göring's massive oak table. He weighed the images in his hands, then laughed. "Wooden mock-ups," he declared. "Propaganda. The Americans could not possibly produce hundreds of bombers per month." Even Hitler, when briefed, dismissed the numbers. "A bomber is not a car," he insisted. "It requires precision, skill, dedication. It is impossible." Canaris even smuggled film footage of Willow Run in operation, showing planes moving through the mile-long line, every worker performing precise tasks. Still, it was considered propaganda. Aerial photographs arrived months later, showing completed bombers, freight trains delivering materials, and workers in coordinated shifts. Analysts confirmed the production rate, yet Göring and Hitler refused to believe it. Dr. Albert Speer, the only Nazi minister with a true understanding of industrial production, privately recorded in May 1943, "If Willow Run's figures are even half accurate, we face not defeat but annihilation. They produce more aircraft in a month than we do in a year. I cannot speak this truth, for to do so would be my death warrant." By February 1944, Canaris was removed and later executed, alongside Hans Oster, for reporting the truth. German intelligence officers who dared confirm American production faced death or imprisonment. Yet the Americans continued, unrelenting. On June 6, 1944, over 11,000 Allied aircraft descended on Normandy. The Luftwaffe could muster fewer than 300 fighters. Willow Run had achieved its peak production, with 42,331 employees, including 11,000 women, 3,800 African Americans, and 1,200 disabled workers, producing one bomber every 63 minutes. By war's end, Willow Run produced 8,685 B-24s, the United States over 33,717 aircraft in total, more than 3 times Germany's output, while fighting a two-ocean war. The tragedy was not a failure of collection, but of acceptance. German intelligence knew the truth but could not convince their leaders, whose ideological blinders prevented them from seeing reality. Rosie Wilhelm Monroe, one of the real-life Rosies, later recalled, "Nothing fancy. Just punch in, build bombers, punch out. Democracy isn't complicated. It's just free people doing their best." The Nazis had misjudged not only American industrial capacity but the very power of freedom, diversity, and determination. The intelligence that could have ended the war 2 years early was ignored, and the consequences were catastrophic. Misallocated resources, failed strategic planning, and ultimately, defeat. In the ruins of Berlin, as the Third Reich collapsed, American intelligence discovered the final German report on Willow Run, dated April 20th, 1945, Hitler's last birthday. The verdict was clear. Germany did not perish from lack of intelligence, but from the inability to accept truth that contradicted ideology. Willow Run had produced more than bombers. It had produced proof that freedom works, that diversity strengthens, and that ignoring reality can be more deadly than any bomb. The Third Reich had ignored mathematics, and history had passed judgment.